This is the North Mobile Post Radio Show. I am your host, David Merrill. Today's news starts with a sad note. Neil Armstrong, the first man to ever walk on the moon, died yesterday at the age of 82. Armstrong apparently suffered complications from a recent cardiac bypass surgery that led to his demise. He's, of course, known for his 1969 moon landing with Buzz Aldrin, where they became the first two men to walk on the moon. He, of course, made the famous phrase, "This is one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind." President Obama went on to release a statement saying that Armstrong was not just one of the greatest American heroes of his time, but of all time. In other news, Tropical Storm Isaac continues to churn in the Caribbean. The latest stats on it as of 12 o'clock last night, the maximum sustained winds were at 60 miles an hour. It was moving northwest at 17 miles an hour. And because the center of the storm missed Cuba, it is expected to reach hurricane strength before reaching the Gulf of Mexico, and hurricane warnings are already in effect for parts of Florida. And that leads us into our last headline, and that is the Republican National Convention. The first day has been postponed. The Monday evening events have been pushed off because the storm will be passing by at that time. And let's see, when will they be? It will recess until Tuesday afternoon, August 28th. Now let's circle back. I want to talk about Neil Armstrong and what he meant to this country. A lot of people this generation don't realize just how important the space race was to America. And as growing up as a kid in the 90s, I was always fascinated with space, so I looked back on a lot of this stuff, did a lot of reading on the planets and space exploration, and a lot of people don't even know the Russians beat us into space. They put the first astronaut into space, and that kind of put America on alert. And that led to John F. Kennedy stating that by the end of the decade we would put a man on the moon, and we did it. Right at the end of the decade, the summer of '69, July 20th, Armstrong becomes the first man to walk on the moon. And to understand what kind of accomplishment that was, can't remember if it was President Bush or President Obama who stated that, I think it was President Bush who wanted to get us back into space exploration. He talked about Mars, and he talked about putting a man back on the moon by 2020. It is the year, he stated this in either '07 or '08, and he was talking about 12 years. In the 60s, we did it in less than a decade. But if we wanted to go back now, it would take that much planning and that much preparation to get a man back on the moon with all our advanced technology, and we were able to do it in less than a decade in the 60s. It's amazing what we were able to accomplish back then, and the bravery these astronauts, being the first ones to do all this, had is unbelievable. And their accomplishments are just amazing. And President Obama is right. This man was not just one of the greatest men of his time, he is one of the greatest Americans of all time, and his accomplishments should not be short-sighted. It's a sad day to see one of our greatest heroes go down, but the best thing we can do now is remember his accomplishments. He was also a member of the U.S. Navy. He was a naval aviator, flew in the Korean War, several missions, won several awards before going on to NASA and flying in the Gemini missions and, of course, the Apollo missions. And there's not a lot yet on how he died. Just all we know is it was complications from his cardiac bypass surgery. And like I said, a very sad day for America. Very sad day. Now on to the weather story. Isaac. Right now, it is still just a very strong tropical storm. It's not yet reached hurricane strength. It is expected to do so shortly, probably sometime tomorrow morning. And the current track has it missing the eye, is going to stay off the coast and miss the west coast of Florida, go into the Gulf, and then it's expected to eventually take a more northern turn. As it stands right now, if it was just to continue on this track, it would hit somewhere between Louisiana and Mississippi, somewhere in that area along the Gulf Coast, but it's expected to take a more northerly track, and the center of the projected path, the cone of uncertainty as they call it, looks like it would hit somewhere in the Florida Panhandle, maybe around Panama City or the Destin area, and it's expected to strengthen up to a Category 2 storm, which means winds would be over 100 miles an hour, and that's not a super strong storm, but that's a significant storm. Anybody living in that area, from the Panhandle to Louisiana, should begin preparing for that. Get bottled water, batteries, flashlights, a handheld radio, so if the power goes out, you can keep up with the news. And people living in mobile homes or weak homes need to evacuate. They need to get out of there. You do not need to ride this storm out if your house is going to be, if it could be destroyed. That's not a good idea. But for those who live in sturdy homes, a Category 2 storm is something you can generally ride out unless you're close to water. That's what our local weatherman always says. You run from the water, you hide from the wind. As in, if you live in a fairly sturdy home and there's not a bunch of trees around your house that are in danger of toppling over, most likely, as long as your house is up to code, you have the hurricane straps in the roof, you'll be okay. But if you live near water, if you live along the beach, or you live near a river, not a good idea. Water can destroy any home. Water is a very powerful force, the most deadly part of any hurricane, the storm surge. So those especially along the beach, if you live in this projected area, be prepared to get out. And let's see, the Republican convention, they're taking that advice very well, because Tampa Bay, the way this storm is going to come, once it passes Tampa, once the eye passes offshore, goes north of Tampa Bay, the back end of that storm, the way a hurricane rotates, it rotates counterclockwise. So the back end of that storm is going to end up pushing, the wind is going to push water into Tampa Bay, and it could flood the area near where the convention is being held. So they're pushing it off. And just the Monday, they're going to come back and start it Tuesday, which I believe the Monday event wasn't even going to be on national TV, so that works out okay. They had already rescheduled Ann Romney's speech because it wasn't going to be covered on national TV, and they definitely want her shown on national TV. She's considered one of Romney's best surrogates, and with their recent women troubles with the women vote, Obama has double-digit lead, nearly doubles Romney in the women's vote. They definitely want her shown on TV speaking for Mitt Romney. What else? So that's gonna change things up, though. I'm not sure yet if they are gonna add an extra day on the end or what, or if they're just gonna cram more in. There was a lot of stuff they were trying to do to push into Monday that when the national television audience was gonna be there, they wanted to get done. Particularly the delegates where Romney's gonna be nominated. They did not want that shown on national TV because there's a lot of Ron Paul delegates that wanted to make their love of Ron Paul known. They wanted to blurt it out, and Republicans are trying to show unity right now. They don't want any monkey business at their convention this year. They just want to get Romney nominated, and I think it's very important. I'm expecting this year to see a lot. Finally, this has been a very ugly campaign, very negative, and I'm expecting to see a lot of positivity about Romney. They've really got to define who he is, because that's one thing Barack Obama has done very well, his campaign. They have defined who Romney is, and all summer long, Romney, he went in with bad favorables, personal favorables. People didn't like him that much personally, unless they were hardcore Republican. Independents, swing voters, they were not too keen on him. And that was to start, and then the Obama campaign comes in and nails him with the taxes, him not releasing 12 years of taxes like his father did, or more than 2, and they nailed him with the Bain Capital attacks, mirroring what Ted Kennedy did in the early 90s when Mitt Romney ran against him for the Senate seat. And by earlier this month, right before he announced Paul Ryan as his running mate, he was running far behind. He was even Fox News, which, as we all know, is a conservative news network, very conservative leaning. They had Mitt Romney down by 9 points with registered voters. Now, they did a new poll this week that shows Romney up 1, but they switched the polling out, and now they're only using likely voters. And I'm not a polling expert, but they say likely voters is more accurate. That tends to more closely mirror the results, but we'll see. Most polls show Obama still with a between 3 and 4 point lead, somewhere in that area. So I'm thinking it's probably still in that range. He's leading a lot of the swing states. Right now, Obama is probably ahead. And again, that is a lot to do with his campaign. There's one thing, whether you like or don't like Obama, the man can campaign. He is very good at that. He ran good campaigns. He beat Hillary Clinton, the Clinton machine, back in 08 and 07. And then he beat John McCain. That wasn't that big of an accomplishment because the economy imploded, but he ran a good campaign. And they have a very strong grassroots machine that is going to be hard to overcome. So, barring another economic collapse or something like that, Mitt Romney has his work cut out for him, and they got to start now by defining him, by being positive at this convention, and what's his vision for America. He's going to have to get a little more specific, I think. He can't just say we're going to cut taxes, cut spending, cut regulation, and the jobs are going to flow. He better start getting a little more refined, because that'll go over okay with the conservatives at this convention, but it's not going to draw in the independent voters that he's going to need to win the election. And he can't go in with that kind of talk in the debates. Obama will slaughter him if he goes in and just talks about cutting taxes, cutting regulation, and cutting spending. He's going to tie him to Bush, because he's going to say, we had that for 8 years and it didn't work. That's what got us into this mess. And, then he'll run campaign ads with those statements, saying he's going to destroy the economy again. And I don't think Bush is still polling very badly. People still blame him mostly for this mess we're in. So you don't want to go about spouting the same philosophy that George Bush followed. And so far, that's all Romney's done. Most of his ideas are more of the same. He's going to have to come up with a different spin for his agenda. And the Medicare issue, that's another problem they have. That they have this plan to voucherize Medicare, and I think they've actually done a really good job coming out strong on Medicare by attacking Obama for the $700 in cuts from Medicare that go into Obamacare, which they weren't really cuts, they were savings that extend the life of Medicare by taking some of the money they would have paid to doctors. Like I said, I'm not an expert on that, but something about it cut the payments to doctors through savings, through efficiency, and with those savings they help fund Obamacare. So Medicare recipients won't lose benefits under that plan, but of course this is politics, and Mitt Romney played it like they would. So, and I think that was a smart move, smart campaign move. It's not all necessarily true the way they're stating it, but a lot of what politicians don't say is true. So he's went on the offensive, and that stemmed the tide, but long run, that's a battle they're most likely going to lose, because, on matters of Medicare, it's one of the, it's third rail politics. You don't want to go into that against Democrats, because in general, people believe the Democrats want to, help the entitlement programs. And even now, the polling is showing people don't trust Romney, on Medicare. They trust Obama, even after Romney's, campaign hammering the $700 billion in cuts. So we'll see what they push. It is going to be very interesting. They have the Republicans have a lot of good speakers lined up for the convention. I'm very excited to hear. They have Chris Christie, Marco Rubio, and Romney should give a good speech. And I'm really excited to hear Mitt Romney's speech itself. He I want to see what's his message. This is the biggest thing he's going to give until the debates, the biggest speech, the biggest audience he's going to have until those debates, and it's very important to see what he brings to the table. And that's it for the news today. Be sure to check back tomorrow for more news, more opinions, and we'll see you then.